In the last lesson, we examined the changes that happen inside the brain of someone living with dementia. In this lesson, we're going to look more closely at the different routes that lead to these brain changes and mental decline we see in dementia. There are 4 different routes that can lead to the brain degeneration that we see in dementia. By developing an understanding of these different causes, it will give you a real appreciation of the power of the prevention tools we're going to give you in your dementia prevention toolbox. Because each of these tools works on and fixes the underlying causes of dementia. So the first route to dementia is inflammation. Inflammation is a natural protective function of the immune system for fighting harmful bacteria and viruses. Acute or temporary inflammation, like the redness and swelling of a cut on your hand for instance, increases blood flow to the injured area to start healing. Inflammation is essential for healing our body. But chronic or long-term inflammation, on the other hand, can occur when the inflammation happens over long periods of time because of things like high sugar diets, unchecked stress, and many other lifestyle risk factors which we will address in Module 2. So chronic inflammation turns from a protective process to a destructive force. The body actually starts attacking itself. And this is what you see in the brains of people living with dementia, even early on after a diagnosis. The brain's natural waste disposal system, which normally protects the brain from damage by clearing unwanted brain waste away, becomes hyperactive and starts attacking, damaging and clearing away and killing healthy brain cells, leading to mental decline and memory loss. This is why chronic inflammation is widely considered to be a major cause of dementia. So the second route to dementia is oxidation. Oxidation occurs naturally when oxygen reacts with substances and changes them. So rusting metal or a decaying banana that goes brown are both examples of oxidation. This is the same chemical reaction that happens inside your body, but it's your brain cells that are rusting and decaying when they oxidize. And because the brain works harder than any other organ in your body, consuming a massive 25% of the body's oxygen, it's especially vulnerable to the damaging effects of oxidation. The energy to clear away the waste left by oxidative damage must come from within the brain. And there's very little outside help. Even though the brain has special cells that break down and neutralise these free radicals, these helper cells are also damaged over time by poor diet, lack of exercise, chronic stress and lack of restorative sleep. So when the brain's natural waste disposal system is compromised, free radicals become particularly damaging for your brain. So the third biological route to dementia, which is especially common in the early stages of Alzheimer's disease, is what we call blood sugar abnormalities. So the scientific term is glucose dysregulation. And the system responsible for maintaining glucose begins to falter as we get older, especially when we eat a diet high in sugar and refined carbohydrates. So abnormal production and usage of glucose affects the pancreas. And because glucose is the major source of energy for the body and the brain, the consequences can be far-reaching for your health and well-being. So the negative consequences are particularly damaging in the brain because it's so energy hungry. One dangerous consequence of blood sugar abnormalities is insulin resistance, which is a change in your sensitivity to insulin. That's a hormone that allows your body to harness the energy of glucose. Glucose fuels your brain cells, but can only be used by a cell when insulin is present. So when insulin attaches itself to a cell, the cell is prompted to bring glucose inside. When there's too much glucose in your blood, 2 major problems happen. First, insulin levels rise and can't find places to attach to the cell. And the result is that glucose can't get inside the cell, and the cells literally starve to death because of the lack of fuel provided by glucose. So second, high insulin levels in the blood initiate a cascade of harmful processes in the brain, including inflammation, oxidation, mismanagement of brain fats, and the creation of toxic proteins like beta amyloid and tau that we've already discussed are associated with dementia. So many people are unaware that they are insulin resistant, but this disease alone in the brain can lead to mental decline and dementia. And once you progress from insulin resistance to a diagnosis of diabetes, the most dangerous consequence of blood sugar abnormalities, your risk of mental decline is even greater. So research has shown that in people with diabetes, the brain area which is critical for your memory and your learning called the hippocampus, literally shrinks. So the fourth and final biological route to dementia is poor management and regulation of the building blocks of the brain. The scientific term is lipid dysregulation. So lipids are the fats that form the building blocks of cell walls, hormones and steroids that are integral to the structure and function in the brain of the body. So lipids make up half of your brain's weight. And the lipid dysregulation occurs when the body is exposed to too much fat, oxidative stress and other forms of stress. Lipid dysregulation causes an increase in cholesterol levels during times of stress. Cholesterol begins to accumulate in the blood vessels, eventually clogging arteries and causing vascular diseases, which are a major cause of dementia, particularly in men. So when cholesterol isn't cleared away or processed properly, this ultimately leads to the formation of amyloid plaques. The brain diseases we've discussed strongly associated with dementia. So the gene, the APOE4 gene, strongly associated with Alzheimer's disease, has been implicated with lipid dysregulation. This gene makes a protein responsible for clearing both lipids and amyloid, but because this version of the protein is not very good at clearing waste, lipids and then amyloid accumulate outside brain cells, and this leads to brain damage. So the cumulative trauma of lipid dysregulation, vascular disease, and the improper accumulation of amyloid, combined with years of oxidative stress, can ultimately lead to dementia. All four of these biological pathways are interconnected, and dementia can be primarily driven by one or by all of them. That is, dementia can have different routes to the same end result: mental decline and, sadly, memory loss. So, for example, a person with a diet high in cholesterol and saturated fat may develop vascular disease first, which then leads to inflammation and then oxidation, whereas a person with a diet high in sugar may start with insulin resistance, which then leads to vascular disease and then inflammation. So the combined effect of these different biological routes leads to the brain disease we see in dementia. So the cascade of these biological causes comes first, followed by the physical brain disease of dementia, and then the symptoms. So what are the key messages we can take away from this lesson? Well, dementia is really a constellation of different biological causes that ultimately manifest in the symptoms and diseases we call Alzheimer's disease, frontal temporal dementia, or vascular dementia, and the other forms of dementia as well. So what is absolutely amazing is that all four of these biological pathways are deeply influenced by your lifestyle. Our daily choices are the driving factor at the beginning and throughout the entire progression of dementia. As we'll show you when we give you your Dementia Prevention Toolkit in Module 3, these different biological routes of dementia can be controlled and even reversed by how you live your life. So in the next module, we're going to examine the risk of developing dementia and how to reduce them. And then we're going to measure your risk for developing this debilitating disorder and the factors in your life that are increasing your chances of getting dementia. So I'll look forward to seeing you there.